American Literature B23 ENG 404. This audio guide is your complete walkthrough for American literature. We will cover 4 units. Each unit is broken down into its mechanical, thematic, and symbolic structures. Let us begin. Unit 1 is Tennessee Williams and his masterpiece, The Glass Menagerie. This is a full-spoken analysis that details the mechanical setups of plastic theater and the memory play structure. We will first define plastic theater as Williams's rejection of standard photographic realism. Instead of simply copying everyday life, plastic theater uses stylized lighting, symbolic recurring music, projected screen legends, and poetic props to project inner psychological and emotional truths directly to the audience. The memory play structure means the entire narrative is framed as Tom Wingfield's subjective, retrospective memory. Because memory is selective and guilt-ridden, Tom acts as an unreliable narrator, stepping in and out of the action. We will then go through a step-by-step character breakdown of Tom, Amanda, Laura, and Jim O'Connor, examining how each character navigates the space between illusion and reality. The thematic focus points include illusion versus reality, the family trap, and the failure of the American dream. Finally, we will unpack the intricate symbolic meanings behind the glass unicorn, which represents Laura's unique and fragile difference, the fire escape, which is both a launchpad to freedom for Tom and a terrifying barrier for Laura, and the nickname Blue Roses, which Jim gave Laura after mishearing the word pleurosis. Blue roses do not exist in nature, and they symbolize an impossible, exotic beauty that cannot survive in the real world. Unit 2 is Ralph Waldo Emerson and the foundations of Transcendentalism. This section breaks down the structural tenets of his radical individualism across 3 cornerstone essays. First, we deconstruct the political and cultural goals of the American scholar. Emerson calls this address America's intellectual declaration of independence because it demands that American thinkers stop imitating European models. The scholar's education comes from 3 sources: nature, which is mind made visible; books, which Emerson warns are merely basic tools for the scholar's idle times and must never become masters; and action, because lived experience is essential and thought without action remains dead. Second, we explain why the line of foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds appears in self-reliance. Emerson is not attacking logic. He is attacking the intellectual cowardice of refusing to change your mind simply because of a past statement or a fear of public contradiction. The great soul must embrace growth and contradict itself if new intuition dawns. Third, we outline the cosmic unifying reality of the Oversoul, which is Emerson's term for the vast, universal divine mind that underlies and connects all individual souls. Self-reliance is not selfishness because the deepest self we are told to trust is actually the divine soul flowing through us. Unit 3 is Walt Whitman and his democratic free verse architecture. This section investigates Whitman's structural changes to poetry. He shattered traditional European conventions by introducing free verse, poetry liberated from regular rhyme and meter. He used biblical anaphora, the repetition of a phrase at the start of successive lines, to create an incantatory rhythm. And he invented the catalog form, long panoramic lists of everyday people and objects where every item is grammatically equal, enacting democracy through form. We provide distinct textual commentary for each prescribed poem. For O Captain, My Captain, we analyze the extended Civil War ship metaphor where the captain is Abraham Lincoln, the fearful trip is the Civil War, and the ship is the United States. For Oneself I Sing, we discuss the equality of body and soul, as Whitman declares he sings of physiology from top to toe. For Passage to India, we show how technology such as the Suez Canal and the Transcontinental Railroad is transformed into a metaphor for the soul's journey toward cosmic unity with the divine. We also cover a noiseless patient spider, where a spider spinning filaments alone becomes a symbol for the human soul seeking spiritual connection, and I Hear America Singing, where a democratic catalog of working people celebrates the dignity of labor. Unit 4 is Robert Frost and his modernist regionalism hiding deep philosophical voids. This section unpacks the dark psychological mechanisms underneath his deceptively simple pastoral verses. We explore the theme of retrospective self-deception in The Road Not Taken, showing that both roads are described as really about the same, and the speaker knows he will later invent a story of bold individualism from an essentially arbitrary choice. We analyze the death and oblivion lure in Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, where the dark deep woods represent the temptation to surrender daily burdens, while the horse's harness bells and the speaker's promises to keep represent the choice of life and duty. We examine the ideal boundaries of imagination in Birches, where climbing a birch tree toward heaven is valuable only if the tree dips its top and sets you safely back down on earth. We discuss the social necessity of boundaries in Mending Wall, where the speaker questions the wall but still participates in mending it, while the neighbor repeats good fences make good neighbors. Finally, we confront the cosmic terror of dark planning in design, a Petrarchan sonnet where a white spider on a white flower holds a dead white moth. Frost asks whether a malevolent design governs nature or whether there is no design at all, leaving existence random and indifferent. Keep listening as we move into the full detailed analysis of each section. We will now cover the entire syllabus in the order of the 4 units. Let us start with Unit 1, Tennessee Williams and his masterpiece, The Glass Menagerie. Tennessee Williams lived from 1911 to 1983. He is America's foremost playwright of psychological realism. His play The Glass Menagerie, which premiered in 1944, is a memory play. This means the entire story is filtered through the memory of the narrator, Tom Wingfield. Memory is not reliable, it is selective, emotional, and often guilty. The play introduces Williams's concept of plastic theater. This is a crucial term for your exam. Plastic theater rejects standard photographic realism. Instead, it uses all available tools on stage: lighting, music, projected images, and symbolic props to make inner psychological states visible to the audience. For example, Laura Wingfield is often bathed in a special, expressionistic light that makes her skin look like translucent glass, mirroring her extreme fragility. A recurring melancholy musical theme plays whenever her world is threatened. The set itself, the fire escape, acts as a symbol of both entrapment and escape. Now, let us analyze the 4 main characters. Tom Wingfield is both the narrator from the future and a character in the past. He is a poet trapped in a warehouse job, forced to support his mother and sister. He is torn between his duty to them and his desperate need for adventure. His overwhelming guilt about eventually abandoning his sister Laura is the emotional engine that drives the memory play. Amanda Wingfield is Tom's mother and Laura's mother. She is a faded Southern belle who constantly retreats into her golden memories of Blue Mountain and her 17 gentlemen callers. She is simultaneously comic, tragic, controlling, and suffocating. Her love for her children is real, but her expression of that love manifests as a destructive psychological chokehold. She is not a simple villain nor a simple victim. She is a woman abandoned by her husband, left alone to raise 2 children during the Great Depression, with very few economic options available to women. Laura Wingfield is Tom's sister. She is painfully shy and physically crippled, with one leg shorter than the other. Unable to survive in the real world, she retreats into her collection of delicate glass animals, her glass menagerie. She represents exquisite fragility, a pure, poetic beauty that cannot survive the harsh, competitive demands of a capitalist society. Jim O'Connor is the gentleman caller. he is a warm, ordinary, realistic man who represents the outside world of commerce and practical action. He briefly acts as a catalyst of hope for Laura, but inadvertently shatters her psychological universe by revealing that he is already engaged to be married. Now, focus on the symbols for your short answer questions. The glass menagerie itself represents Laura's inner psychological space, beautiful, iridescent, and completely removed from reality. Within the collection, the glass unicorn is the ultimate symbol for Laura. It is unique and isolated because of its horn, mirroring Laura's physical and psychological differences. When Jim accidentally breaks the horn off during a dance, Laura remarks that the unicorn has now become an ordinary horse. This mirrors her own brief transformation. For a few minutes, Jim makes her feel normal and loved, only for that illusion to break. The fire escape is the literal and metaphorical threshold between entrapment and escape. For Tom, it is a launchpad into freedom. For Laura, it is a terrifying barrier. She literally slips and stumbles on it, proving her inability to navigate the outside world. Finally, the portrait of the absent father, grinning enigmatically on the apartment wall, represents the hollow promise of the American dream. He was a telephone man who fell in love with long distance and abandoned his family, a betrayal that Tom is eventually forced to repeat. Also, remember the origin of the nickname Blue Roses. Laura had been absent from school due to an attack of pleurosis, an inflammation of the lungs. Jim misheard the word as blue roses. Blue roses do not exist in nature. They represent an impossible, exotic, unnatural beauty that cannot survive the perfect description of Laura Wingfield. Memorize this key quote from Tom in the final scene. He says, "I didn't go to the moon, I went much further, for time is the longest distance between two places." Use this quote in your essays to discuss memory and guilt. Now, move to Unit 2, Ralph Waldo Emerson and his essays. Emerson lived from 1803 to 1882. He founded the Transcendentalist movement. Transcendentalism asserts the complete divinity of nature and the individual soul, prioritizing intuition over organized religion and demanding radical nonconformity. Your first essay is The American Scholar, delivered as an address at Harvard in 1837. The writer Oliver Wendell Holmes famously called this America's intellectual declaration of independence. Emerson delivers a blistering critique of American academic culture, warning that the nation has become culturally timid, producing unthinking bookworms who merely copy old European models. He calls for the birth of a true American scholar who embodies the active soul. Emerson maps out three core influences that form the scholar's education. First is nature. Nature is the primary teacher, mind made visible. By studying natural laws, the scholar discovers the structure of their own soul. Second is books, the mind of the past. Emerson warns that books are a dangerous trap. They are tools for the scholar's idle times, not intellectual masters. Meek dependence on books creates derivative pedants instead of active creators. Third is action. Lived experience is completely essential. Thought without active engagement in the real world remains theoretical, hollow, and dead. Life is the supreme university. Your second essay is Self-Reliance from 1841. This is the definitive statement of Emerson's radical individualism. The core thesis is simple: trust yourself completely, because your inner voice is a direct spark of the universal divine mind. Emerson argues that society is in a permanent conspiracy against the independence of its citizens. Society values compliance, customs, and conformity above all else, which systematically silences the unique inner voice of the individual soul. Analyze his most famous declaration. He writes, "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds." Pay close attention to the word foolish. Emerson is not attacking logic or reasoned principles. He is attacking the intellectual cowardice of refusing to change your mind simply because of a past statement or a fear of public contradiction. To hold a fixed view out of pride or to please a social group is to murder your own mental growth. The truly great soul must embrace change and growth, speaking their mind today and contradicting themselves tomorrow if new intuition dawns. He extends this critique to attack popular escapes like travel, which he calls a fool's paradise. When an individual travels across the world to admire grand architectures, they carry their own sad, unexamined mind with them in their luggage. What the soul seeks in ruins or foreign lands is already fully present inside its own internal spiritual core. Your third essay is The Oversoul, also from 1841. This essay presents the overarching spiritual framework that unites all of Emerson's individualist ideas. The Oversoul is his term for the vast, universal divine mind, the impersonal, unified spiritual reality that underlies, infuses, and binds all individual souls together. This concept resolves an apparent contradiction in his philosophy. If every individual is fiercely self-reliant, how do we maintain a shared humanity? Emerson explains that self-reliance is not standard selfishness, because the deepest self we are told to trust is actually the universal divine soul flowing through us. In moments of deep artistic inspiration, intense love, prayer, or absolute beauty, the superficial ego dissolves, and the individual mind directly participates in this infinite, common spiritual ocean. Intuition is the literal voice of the Oversoul speaking inside our consciousness. Now move to Unit 3, Walt Whitman and his selected poems. Whitman lived from 1819 to 1892. He is universally celebrated as America's great democratic poet. Strongly inspired by Emerson's call for a Native American bard, Whitman published his revolutionary collection, Leaves of Grass, in 1855. Whitman shattered traditional European poetic conventions by introducing free verse, poetry entirely liberated from regular rhyme schemes or rigid rhythmic meters. His lines follow the expansive, natural movement of human breath and spontaneous thought. He introduced the catalog form, long panoramic lists of everyday people, ordinary jobs, and physical objects. This was a direct political choice. In a democratic catalog, every single item in the list is grammatically and structurally equal to every other item. The song of a rough carpenter is given the exact same poetic weight as the song of a scholar. He also refused the traditional separation of mind and body, declaring that the physical body is completely equal in sanctity to the immortal soul. Your first poem is O Captain, My Captain from 1865. This is an intense, formal elegy written to mourn the assassination of Abraham Lincoln at the close of the American Civil War. The poem is constructed upon an extended metaphor. The captain represents President Abraham Lincoln. The fearful trip represents the bloody, catastrophic 4 years of the Civil War. The ship represents the United States of America as a unified vessel. And the prize won represents the preservation of the Union and the emancipation of enslaved people. The true dramatic weight of the poem rests on the juxtaposition of national triumph and personal devastation. The crowds on the shore are cheering, the bells are ringing, and the flags are flying in victory, while the speaker walks the deck with a bleeding heart, staring down at his captain who lies fallen, cold, and dead. Memorize these opening lines. O Captain, my captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every rack, the prize we sought is won. But oh heart, heart, heart. Oh the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. Your second poem is Oneself I Sing. This serves as the programmatic inscription at the very front of Leaves of Grass. In just a few brief lines, Whitman outlines his entire poetic mission. He sings the song of the autonomous individual, yet immediately expands to celebrate the word en masse, the collective democratic multitude. He explicitly declares that he sings of human physiology from top to toe, asserting that the physical body, its pulses, and its passions are completely sacred. Your third poem is Passage to India from 1871. This expansive poem was triggered by three massive technological achievements: the opening of the Suez Canal, the completion of the American Transcontinental Railroad, and the laying of the transatlantic telegraph cable. Whitman begins by celebrating these engineering breakthroughs that physically knit the globe together. However, the poem quickly moves past material technology. Whitman argues that these physical tracks and canals are merely minor material metaphors for a much grander spiritual journey, the human soul's passage toward ultimate cosmic unity with the divine oversoul. He declares that the poet is the true Son of God. While the engineer connects physical bodies across oceans, the poet must connect separate human souls. Your fourth poem is A Noiseless Patient Spider. This beautiful, tightly controlled two-stanza lyric uses a perfect metaphysical conceit to explore existential isolation. In the first stanza, the speaker observes a small spider standing entirely alone on a tiny cliff. It tirelessly launches gossamer filaments into the measureless, empty void, seeking a safe anchor to build its web. In the second stanza, the focus shifts inward as the speaker addresses his own soul. The human soul stands isolated in the exact same way, surrounded by measureless oceans of cosmic space. The soul is constantly musing, venturing, and throwing out its own internal gossamer threads, acts of poetry, art, love, and imagination, desperately searching for a spiritual anchor. Memorize these lines. And you, O my soul, where you stand, surrounded, detached, in measureless oceans of space, ceaselessly musing, venturing, throwing, seeking the spheres to connect them, till the bridge you will need be formed, till the ductile anchor hold. Your fifth poem is I Hear America Singing. This brief, joyful poem acts as a democratic catalogue celebrating the pride and dignity of everyday human labor. Whitman steps through the working class of America, the carpenter, the mason, the boatman, the shoemaker, the woodcutter, and the young mother at work. Each individual sings a unique, robust song that belongs strictly to them, yet together their individual notes combine into a harmonious national chorus of productivity and freedom. Your sixth poem is A Clear Midnight, a beautiful four-line lyric that presents a quiet, nocturnal space for spiritual reflection. The speaker commands his soul to release itself from the busy daytime world of books and arguments, taking flight into the wordless mystical night to commune directly with reality beyond language. Now move to Unit 4, Robert Frost. Frost lived from 1874 to 1963. He is America's most beloved 20th-century regionalist poet, deeply associated with the rural landscape of New England, its stone walls, birch trees, apple orchards, and old snowy woods. Here is a major tip for your essays. Students often misread Frost as a simple, comforting nature poet. In reality, Frost is a deeply dark, intensely philosophical modern thinker. He uses specific, ordinary rural observations as an accessible starting point to think outward toward profound, terrifying questions about human isolation, choices under uncertainty, the inevitability of mortality, and the chilling indifference of the natural universe. A core technical concept to use in your answers is his poetic theory of the sound of sense. Frost deliberately rejected the experimental, fragmented free verse of his modernist peers. Instead, he kept traditional formal structures like blank verse and sonnets, but renovated them completely from within. He captured the exact colloquial cadences, tones, and pauses of actual conversational human speech and interlocked them directly within the formal metric lines. As he famously stated, a poem begins in delight and ends in wisdom. Your first poem is The Road Not Taken from 1916. This is the most frequently misunderstood poem in American literary history. It is popularized as an inspirational anthem celebrating bold individualism. But a precise reading reveals that the text is deeply ironic. It is a gentle mockery of humanity's desperate need to romanticize completely random choices. Look closely at his actual descriptions of the two forks in the yellow wood. The speaker states that the second path was just as fair as the first, and emphasizes that the passing of footsteps there had worn them really about the same. Both paths equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. The two choices are completely identical. The true philosophical theme is retrospective self-deception. The speaker recognizes that years later, when he is an old man looking back, he will invent a grand narrative of bold individual choice, claiming with a sigh that he took the path less traveled by and that it has made all the difference. Frost reveals that humans cannot bear the terrifying randomness of existence. We must invent stories after the fact to give our arbitrary choices a meaning they never possessed. Memorize this final stanza. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Your second poem is Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening from 1923. This is an incredibly musical, hypnotic poem built upon an interlocking rhyme scheme that mimics a sleepy lullaby. The speaker pauses his horse carriage on a freezing night to watch snow slowly blanket a dark isolated forest. The woods act as a profound symbol for oblivion, rest, and death. They are described as lovely, dark, and deep, representing a powerful temptation to surrender your daily burdens and fade into quiet non-existence. However, the speaker's practical horse shakes its harness bells, acting as a reality principle that jars the speaker back into consciousness. The divide between duty and desire is resolved. The speaker acknowledges that he cannot stay in the beautiful dark because he has promises to keep, human responsibilities and moral relationships, and miles to go before he sleeps. The repetition of this final line functions as a brilliant dual device, evoking both absolute physical exhaustion and a firm, stoic resolve to choose life and duty over oblivion. Your third poem is Birches from 1916. This blank verse poem explores the proper relationship between the imagination and actual physical reality. The speaker looks at a grove of birch trees that have been bent down to the ground by heavy winter ice storms. He admits that he prefers to ignore this cold, scientific truth and instead imagine a playful young farm boy climbing to the very top of the trees and swinging on them. The act of swinging on birches becomes a symbol for the ideal function of the imagination. The boy climbs up the white trunk toward heaven and transcendence to temporarily escape the painful realities of earth. But the tree eventually dips its top under his weight and sets him safely back down. The imagination must never be used for permanent escapism, which would result in spiritual death. Instead, it must serve as a brief, refreshing intermission that returns us to the physical world, because as Frost writes, Earth's the right place for love. Your fourth poem is Mending Wall from 1914. This poem captures a springtime ritual where two rural neighbors walk along their shared boundary line to repair a dry stone wall that has been broken down by the winter frost. The speaker is a playful, questioning modern mind who challenges the very necessity of the wall, noting that they have no cows to wander off. His apple trees will never cross over to eat his neighbor's pine cones. He famously muses, something there is that doesn't love a wall. The neighbor, by contrast, is a stolid, traditional man who refuses to look past his father's old proverbs, repeating his absolute axiom, good fences make good neighbors. Your fifth poem is Fire and Ice from 1920. This is a deceptively light, 9-line poem that uses a casual conversational tone to discuss cosmic apocalypse. The speaker debates whether the world will end in fire or ice. He identifies fire with burning human desire, passion, and greed, and identifies ice with cold hatred, isolation, and indifference. He concludes that while fire is a spectacular destructive force, for the total annihilation of existence, the silent freezing capacity of ice is equally great and would completely suffice. Your sixth poem is designed from 1936. This is Frost's darkest, most terrifying poem. It is a flawless Petrarchan sonnet that directly confronts the theological problem of evil and creation. The octave describes a small eerie tableau in nature, a fat white spider hiding on a white heel-all flower holding a freshly murdered dead white moth. The color white is traditionally used to symbolize purity and innocence, but Frost uses it here to create a chilling alignment of death and predation. In the sestet, he demands to know what cosmic force brought these three white characters together in the dark to execute a killing. He asks if there is a malevolent governing design of darkness to appall inside the universe. The final line introduces a sudden, terrifying modernist doubt. If design govern in a thing so small? Frost leaves the reader suspended over an existential abyss. It is horrifying if a cruel god designed a spider to trap a moth, but it is even more terrifying if there is no design at all, leaving existence completely random, mechanical, and indifferent. Now, let us run through the key literary terms for your compulsory short answers. Plastic theater is Tennessee Williams's production philosophy that rejects photographic naturalism on stage, utilizing expressionistic lighting, symbolic set pieces, projection screens, and recurring musical motifs to make internal psychological states visible. A memory play is a dramatic structure where the entire narrative is framed as a subjective, retrospective memory of the protagonist. Transcendentalism is the American philosophical movement that asserted the divinity of nature and the individual soul, prioritizing intuition over logic and demanding nonconformity. The Oversoul is Emerson's term for the infinite universal divine mind that connects all individual souls. The catalog form is Whitman's signature poetic device of long sweeping lists of ordinary people and activities, serving a democratic purpose where every item is given equal poetic weight. The sound of sense is Frost's poetic theory that lines must capture the actual tones and cadences of colloquial spoken conversation within traditional metric verse. A metaphysical conceit is an elaborate extended metaphor establishing a parallel between two completely dissimilar objects, as seen in Whitman's pairing of a spinning spider with the human soul. And theodicy is the philosophical problem of reconciling a benevolent creator with the existence of evil, as analyzed in Frost's design. Now, let me give you brief model answers for typical short questions. If asked, what is plastic theater and how does Williams use it, you would say, Tennessee Williams coined the term plastic theater to describe a mode of dramatic expression that breaks away from standard photographic realism. Instead of merely copying everyday life on the surface, plastic theater combines lighting, music, projected legends, and poetic props to render the inner emotional and psychological states of the characters visible on stage. In The Glass Menagerie, Laura is frequently bathed in expressionistic light that makes her skin look like translucent glass, highlighting her vulnerability. The melancholy Glass Menagerie musical theme plays whenever Laura's fragile world is threatened. Williams also designed a screen device to project titles and symbolic images over the scenes to comment on the internal subtext. If asked about Emerson's foolish consistency, you would say, this iconic line from Self-Reliance serves as an attack against intellectual conformism and static thinking. Emerson is criticizing the human tendency to blindly cling to old statements out of pride or fear of public contradiction, even when inner intuition has evolved. The word foolish is critical. Emerson is not attacking reasoned logic. he is attacking the cowardice of refusing to grow out of an obsession with looking predictable to society. The great active soul must boldly resist this pressure, remaining willing to speak their mind today and contradict themselves tomorrow if deeper truth dawns. If asked about Whitman's extended metaphor in O Captain, My Captain, you would say, the poem is a formal national elegy built entirely on a sustained extended metaphor. The captain represents Abraham Lincoln. The fearful trip represents the Civil War. The ship represents the United States. The prize sought represents the preservation of the Union and emancipation. By utilizing this interlocking metaphor, Whitman heightens the tragedy of the victory, forcing the country to remember that its ultimate survival was purchased at the cost of its greatest leader. If asked about the irony in The Road Not Taken, you would say, the brilliance of Frost's poem lies in its subtle irony. While popular as an anthem for individualism, the text actually delivers a quiet mockery of our need to romanticize arbitrary choices. Frost explicitly undermines the speaker's claim that he chose a path less traveled. The speaker admits both paths were about the same. The true irony occurs in the final stanza, where the speaker projects into his future, admitting that years from now he will spin a self-deceiving story, claiming he took the road less traveled. Frost reveals that humans cannot face the random contingency of life. We must invent narratives after the fact to give our arbitrary actions the illusion of deliberate purpose. Now, let me give you the structure for long essay answers. For a 14-mark question, write 500 to 600 words. Open with a clear thesis statement. Develop 3 to 4 body paragraphs, each with a topic sentence and textual evidence. Close with a synthesis conclusion, not merely a summary. Always prioritize one well-chosen quote per essay. For example, if asked to analyze Amanda Wingfield, your thesis could be that she is both a victim and a villain. In your first body paragraph, argue that she functions as a suffocating oppressor, controlling her children's lives and retreating into her idealized past. In your second body paragraph, argue that she is also a profound victim of structural societal failures, abandoned by her husband and left alone during the Great Depression with few economic options. In your third body paragraph, synthesize the two, concluding that Williams's genius ensures the audience feels both frustration and pity for her tragic situation. If asked about Emerson's American Scholar, your thesis is that Oliver Wendell Holmes called it America's intellectual declaration of independence because it tore American thought free from European dependence. Then detail the 3 pillars of the scholar's education: nature, books, and action, explaining each. Then conclude that the ideal American scholar must be an active soul who trusts their own divine intuition, taking native nature and lived experience as their primary teachers. If asked about Whitman's celebration of democracy, your thesis is that Whitman's democratic vision is inseparable from his poetic technique. Form and content are one. Discuss I Hear America Singing and how the catalog form enacts democratic equality. Discuss Oneself I Sing and how it balances the individual with the collective. Discuss Passage to India and how technology becomes a metaphor for spiritual connection. Conclude that to celebrate democracy is to write democratically in free verse and catalogs. If asked about Frost as a philosophical poet, your thesis is that beneath his pastoral simplicity lie urgent questions about choice, mortality, and cosmic design. Use The Road Not Taken to discuss retrospective self-deception. Use Stopping by Woods to discuss the temptation of death and moral resolve. Use Design to discuss the problem of evil and universal indifference. Conclude that Frost's greatness lies in his ability to inhabit philosophical questions within the concrete imagery of New England life. Here is the conclusion and revision script written specifically for psychological recall and memory hacks. Use this as your final listen before the exam. Conclusion and revision start. You have now completed the full content for all 4 units. But knowing the material is not enough. You must be able to recall it under exam pressure. This final section uses psychological memory hacks to lock every major concept into your brain. Listen closely. These are not summaries. These are retrieval cues designed to trigger your memory instantly when you see a question on the paper. Let us begin with Unit 1, Tennessee Williams and the Glass Menagerie. The psychological hack for this unit is called the memory palace of the apartment. Close your eyes and picture the Wingfield apartment in your mind. In the center of the room, on a small table, sits the glass unicorn. This unicorn represents Laura. Its horn makes it different and fragile. When the horn breaks, it becomes ordinary. That is Laura's broken heart. Now look to the wall. You see the portrait of the absent father, grinning. He represents the failed American dream. Now look out the fire escape. For Tom, it is the exit to freedom. For Laura, she stumbles on it because she cannot navigate the real world. Now hear the music. The melancholy Glass Menagerie theme plays whenever Laura is threatened. That is plastic theater. Now see the screen device projecting words. That is the memory play structure. Tom is narrating from the future, guilty and unreliable. Use this single image of the apartment to trigger everything. Unicorn equals Laura. Fire escape equals trap and escape. Father's portrait equals failed dream. Music and projections equal plastic theater. Tom's voiceover equals memory play. And the nickname Blue Roses. Remember, Blue Roses sounds like blue roses. Blue roses do not exist. Laura is an impossible beauty that cannot survive. That is your anchor. 1 room. 5 objects. The entire unit. Now use a second hack for Unit 1 called the character emotion chain. To remember Amanda Wingfield, link her to the phrase Blue Mountain. She constantly retreats to her past of 17 gentlemen callers. She is not a villain or a victim. She is both. She smothers her children with love that feels like control. To remember Tom, link him to the phrase movies and poetry. He escapes into cinema and literature because he is a poet trapped in a warehouse. His guilt over abandoning Laura drives the entire play. To remember Jim, link him to the phrase ordinary hero. He is warm and kind, but he breaks Laura's heart accidentally by revealing his engagement. The emotional chain is this. Amanda lives in the past. Tom escapes into art. Laura hides in glass. Jim shatters the illusion. Memorize that 4-link chain. Now Unit 2, Ralph Waldo Emerson and his essays. The psychological hack for Emerson is called the 3 pillars and the 1 line. First, the American scholar. Emerson says the scholar's education comes from 3 pillars. Nature first. Nature is mind made visible. Books second. But books are for the scholar's idle times. They are tools, not masters. Action third. Thought without action is dead. To remember this, use your own hand. Thumb is nature. Index finger is books as basic tools. Middle finger is action. Now close your fist. That is the scholar who does not use the pillars. Open your hand. That is the active scholar. Oliver Wendell Holmes called this address America's intellectual declaration of independence. Why? Because it told American writers to stop imitating Europe. Use your open hand as a flag of independence. Now for self-reliance. The 1 line you must memorize is a foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. The psychological hack here is the hobgoblin rule. Repeat this to yourself. Consistency is fine. Foolish consistency is fear. Fear of looking contradictory. Fear of public judgment. Emerson wants you to grow and change your mind. The great soul contradicts itself. Use this mental rule. When you feel stuck in an old position out of pride, say hobgoblin. That word will snap you back to Emerson. Also remember his critique of travel. Traveling is a fool's paradise. You carry your unexamined mind with you in your luggage. What you seek abroad is already inside you. Now for the oversoul. The hack here is the ocean drop. Imagine a single drop of water. That is your individual soul. Now imagine the entire ocean. That is the oversoul, the universal divine mind. The drop is not separate from the ocean. It is made of the ocean. When Emerson says trust yourself, he means trust the ocean inside the drop. Self-reliance is not selfishness. It is fidelity to the divine. Use the image of a drop falling into an ocean. That is the unity of all souls. Intuition is the voice of the oversoul speaking inside you. Memorize this chain. Drop equals self. Ocean equals oversoul. Drop returns to ocean equals intuition. Now Unit 3, Walt Whitman. The psychological hack for Whitman is called the democratic body. Whitman's entire project is equality. Body equals soul. Carpenter equals scholar. Spider equals soul. To remember his three major formal innovations, use your own breathing. Free verse follows the rhythm of your breath, not a fixed meter. Inhale and exhale naturally. That is free verse. Anaphora is repetition. Say the word America 3 times. America, America, America. That is anaphora. The catalog form is a list. Recite carpenter, mason, boatman, shoemaker, mother. That is a democratic catalog. Each item is equal. Your breath, your repetition, your list. 3 hacks for 3 techniques. Now for the specific poems. Use the ship metaphor map for "O Captain, my Captain." The captain is Lincoln. The ship is America. The fearful trip is the Civil War. The prize is Union victory and emancipation. The port is peace. The bleeding drops on the deck are the nation's grief. Memorize this by drawing a mental picture of a ship coming into harbor with a dead captain on deck. That image holds the entire poem. For a noiseless patient spider, use the 2-stanza mirror. Stanza 1 is the spider on a promontory launching filaments into the void. Stanza 2 is the soul standing in measureless oceans of space launching gossamer threads of imagination, love, and art. The spider mirrors the soul. The void mirrors cosmic isolation. The filaments mirror spiritual seeking. To remember this, picture a spider web glowing in the dark. Each thread is a prayer, a poem, or an act of love. The soul keeps throwing threads even when no anchor appears. That is Whitman's courage. For I hear America singing, use the chorus hack. Every worker sings a song that belongs to them and no one else. The carpenter, the mason, the boatman. Their individual songs combine into one national chorus. Democracy means no voice is louder than another. Use the image of a choir where every singer is equally important. For passage to India, use the technology to soul hack. The Suez Canal, the railroad, the telegraph cable connect physical bodies. But Whitman says the poet must connect souls. Technology is only the first step. The real passage is the soul's journey toward God. Remember this. Engineers build bridges for trains. Poets build bridges for souls. Now Unit 4, Robert Frost. The psychological hack for Frost is called the ironic nature walk. Frost's poems look simple but are deeply dark. Use 5 stops on a mental walk through New England. Stop 1 is a fork in a yellow wood. That is the road not taken. Remember the irony rule. Both roads are really about the same. The speaker knows he will later lie and say he took the less traveled path. Humans cannot bear randomness. We invent stories to make our choices meaningful. Use this mantra. Not less traveled. Equally traveled. Retrospective self-deception. Stop 2 is a dark forest filling with snow. That is stopping by woods. The woods are lovely, dark, and deep. They represent death, oblivion, rest. The horse shakes his harness bells. That is reality calling you back. The speaker says he has promises to keep and miles to go before he sleeps. The repetition of the last line enacts both exhaustion and resolve. Use this mantra. Woods equal death temptation. Horse equal duty. Repetition equal moral choice. Stop 3 is a grove of bent birch trees. That is birches. The speaker knows ice storms bent them, but he prefers to imagine a boy swinging on them. Climbing a birch tree means launching yourself toward heaven. But the tree must dip its top and set you back down on earth. Permanent escape is death. Temporary imagination refreshes you for earthly love. Use this mantra. Climb up. Come back down. Earth is the right place for love. Stop 4 is a stone wall being repaired. That is mending wall. The speaker questions the wall, but he is the one who calls his neighbor to fix it. The neighbor repeats good fences make good neighbors. Frost does not take sides. Walls protect and exclude. Boundaries are necessary but must be questioned. Use this mantra. Something there is that doesn't love a wall. But something there is that builds it anyway. Stop 5 is a white spider on a white flower holding a white moth. That is design. White normally means purity, but here it means death. The poem asks whether a cruel God designed this killing or whether there is no design at all, only random indifference. Use this mantra. If design governs, God is malevolent. If no design governs, the universe is meaningless. Both answers are terrifying. Frost leaves you in the question. Now for your exam day recall, use the 5-finger hack. Spread your hand. Each finger triggers a unit. Thumb is unit 1. Thumb points to the apartment. Remember glass unicorn, fire escape, blue roses, plastic theater, memory play. Index finger is unit 2. Index finger points upward to nature. Remember 3 pillars, foolish consistency hobgoblin, oversoul ocean drop. Middle finger is unit 3. Middle finger is the longest, like Whitman's free verse line. Remember catalogs, anaphora, ship metaphor, spider mirroring soul. Ring finger is unit 4. Ring finger is for Frost's ironic nature walk. Remember 5 stops. Fork, woods, birches, wall, spider. Little finger is your exam strategy. Attempt 5 questions. Question 1 is compulsory short notes. Use 1 quote per essay. Do not retell plots. Analyze meanings. Finally, use the sleep anchor. Right before you close your eyes on exam eve, repeat these 5 words slowly. Unicorn. Hobgoblin. Spider. Captain. Woods. Unicorn triggers Williams. Hobgoblin triggers Emerson. Spider triggers Whitman. Captain triggers O Captain. Woods triggers Frost. These 5 words will organize your entire mental filing system. You are now ready. You have the content. You have the memory hacks. You have the psychological anchors. Trust your preparation. Walk into that exam hall knowing that every single answer lives somewhere inside the apartment, the 3 pillars, the Democratic Catalog, and the 5 stops on Frost's Nature Walk. Take a deep breath. That breath is free verse. That breath is self-reliance. That breath is the sound of sense. Now go and write your exam with confidence.